Hello, and welcome back to Slaying the Craft, the show where we go inside the mind of a thriller writer. I am your host, Sabrina Thatcher. I am an author, a podcaster, a book coach, but most of all, fanatic of the genre. I'm so excited to introduce my guest to you today. His name is Jack McTavish. Jack is a retired United States Army colonel and the author of high-stakes action-adventure novels and military political thrillers. With more than 36 years of service in the U.S. Army and Army Reserve, his fiction draws on real-world experience while delivering pace, atmosphere, and adventure. His career spanned airborne, special operations, and joint environments, including assignments supporting U.S. Army Special Operations Command. Jack's work took him across Afghanistan, Korea, Haiti. Oh my God. Let me start. I'm going to start this again. Hold on. This is why we do the recordings. Okay, hold on. All right. Jack is a retired United States Army colonel and the author of high-stakes action-adventure novels and military political thrillers. With more than 36 years of experience in the U.S. Army and Army Reserve, his fiction draws on real-world experience while delivering pace, atmosphere, and adventure. His career spanned airborne, special operations, and joint environments, including assignments for Joint and U.S. Army Special Operations Commands. His work took him across Afghanistan, Korea, Haiti, Central and South America, and the Middle East. And he's also supported missions within the intelligence community as a contractor. Today, he brings the world to the page through stories defined by competence, consequence, loyalty, and high-stakes adventure. His debut novel, Royal Diamonds, will be released on Tuesday, March 17th, which is in just a couple of days at the time of this recording. So excited to have you here. Welcome, Jack.
Awesome. Hey, Sabrina, thanks. Good to have you. Happy St. Patty's Day, I hope.
Yeah, happy St. Patrick's Day.
I'm pretty stoked about having a book launch on that day.
That's going to be awesome. I do have like a bar plan.
No, probably not, but I probably will grab a Guinness.
Yeah, you might as well celebrate.
Enjoy that, yeah. So, do it for my Instagram live that night.
Wow. Your experience is like kind of intimidating, actually. But I bet that it helps so much in your writing. So let's like kind of jump into it. I would love to hear more about Royal Diamonds. Tell me about this book.
Yeah, fantastic. So, so I didn't find this out until I started writing. When I first started writing, I was like, oh, you just write a book and it gets published, and with the background and all that, it'll be fine. Come to find out, most like published authors get like 4 or 5 tries before they actually get one that hits the street. So this is my 4th.
Okay.
And I've got a couple that are like at the 30,000, 40,000 word marks as well. So, but yeah, so it's action adventure. And you got to understand the backstory a little bit first.
Okay.
So I started writing after kind of a tough time in life, and I wrote my first book was a romance novel.
Okay.
Nicholas Sparks, trash. It will never see the light of day. I don't even know where it is right now, other than a file on my computer. And I was like, well, with my background, I was like, well, I'll write. I love military espionage. I read it. I've read a bunch of it. I'll write that. I mean, how hard can it be?
Right. Like it's right what you know, right? That's
common. Army colonel, practice medicine. I can probably do this. And oh, by the way, I watched early on when I first started writing. I watched Jack Carr and Brad Taylor, 2 of my favorite writers, and just awesome guys. Had a chance to meet them both multiple times, and I remember they were at a VoucherCon interviewing each other, and they were like, "I'm a retired SEAL," and the other one says, "Well, I'm a retired Delta Force commander." Like, I mean, how hard could it be? And I kind of took the same approach. Like, I'm not going to fail with this. So like 4 books later,
it's not failure. You learn it every book. Every book is education, and you have to practice.
It has been another graduate degree for sure. So Royal Diamonds. I was 2.5 books into a series of military and espionage stuff, and the editor I was working with said, "Man, I don't know if the market's like is ready for another, high stakes thriller, military espionage book. Can you write action adventure? Looking at your social media, that's kind of more your like vibe as a person anyway." And I thought about it for a second. I'm like, man, like what a gut kick. Like,
yeah, after working on all those
books, like I feel like they're ready. Of course, by that time I was already getting like rejection letters from, agents. we all
It's a
love.
rite of passage. You have to
Oh
have
man,
it.
I sent my first one out, and the first rejection letter came back in like 3 days later, and I was like, oh, it's like, oh, this is what it feels like. Great, fantastic.
Cool.
It's like a good shot. Um, but so yeah, so he's like, can you write action adventure? I said, man, let me think about it for a second. And like, I had no clue like what I was going to write about, and I started thinking. I was like, well, yeah, sure, of course I can, you know. Um, and then I really got into it, and I love it. So, Royal Diamonds, Caribbean Treasure Hunt, rich characters. Jake Steed is my protagonist. He comes from a very wealthy family in Charleston, South Carolina. Which most of my writing focuses. I'm a Southerner. Most of it is focused in the South and in the Caribbean. And Jake comes from a very wealthy family, not a family that's very well liked in Charleston. When Charleston has dirty work to do, they turn to the Steeds. The Steeds have a pirate connection. Ooh.
Ooh.
And if you know anything about Charleston at all, there's tons of pirate stories all over that
Is there?
town.
I really didn't know that. That's
Ooh, you need to
so
come visit.
interesting.
I love it. So Steed Bonnet, the pirate, so interestingly, was hung in Charleston down, I think it's called White Point. But yeah, they would hang the pirates and then cast their bodies out into the marsh and let them be eaten by all the alligators and crabs.
Well,
So back in the day. Um, but so I took the name Steed, and interestingly, Steed Bonnet he was a well-to-do planter, I think, down in Barbados, and had a midlife crisis and kind of a shrew of a wife. And he's like, screw this, I want to go be a pirate. So he left to be a pirate, and he worked with Blackbeard. And so Jake Steed. So there's a connection there in the book. You have to
okay.
read it. But so Steed, he grows up. I'm not going to give away the beginning so much, but he decides that he wants to be a United States Marine. So he goes off and he becomes a Marine, and then he's wounded, like so many guys, get wounded. And fortunately, he'd already had a bachelor's degree. Um, in the Marine Corps was like, you know what? Let's send you off to Oxford. You want to be a historian? We'll send you off to Oxford. You can be a historian. He comes back. He's a historian, and he realizes academic life is not what he wants to do.
Wait,
So he's got money. He's a millionaire.
so
Like
like, let me just,
he jumps on a sailboat and he heads to the Caribbean to find some family treasure.
well, I mean, that sounds like, I mean, a lot of
Yeah.
fun, because that would be way more fun than like sitting in a classroom. But so the US military sends him to Oxford. Oxford is in
Yeah.
England to get and be a
Yeah.
historian. So what was the inspiration there? Like, where did that come from? Because it feels like a wait, what?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the fortunately, I mean, as a veteran, you do have veterans benefits, and I mean, Jake could have gone to Oxford anyway. I
Okay.
mean, he had money and he was smart enough. Okay. But I kind of alluded to a connection in the book, and it maybe not. I don't even remember whether it made it all the way through the edits or not. But his commander was like, Jake, you're a pretty good guy, and I have an Oxford connection. And a lot of military officers are very well educated. A lot of them have gone to Harvard. I think a bunch have actually gone to Oxford as well as scholars. And yeah, so he comes back, he's in a classroom. Enter Harper Calhoun,
hmm
a competing family, and the Calhouns are a very old family in Charleston.
That's a
Um,
name that I would do recognize.
Harper
Calhoun.
Calhoun, yeah, yeah. So, he's actually sitting in on one of her senior classes right before she graduates, and I'll give this one thing away. She ends up punching out her professor and walking out, and
Nice. I like her
yeah,
style.
so yeah, so Jake is like, yeah, this is not for me. And the next thing you know, he's headed off on a sailboat, maybe with a stowaway named Harper, um, to go find some answers to his family's past. And then
And
he
then
actually gets to the Caribbean and he gets wrapped up in another adventure that has to do with a diamond and some British royalty. And there's a very Bond-esque character, although he's a supporting character. He's not a main character. He's a supporting character that's in the book. So it was a hell of a lot of fun to write. I had a good time.
yeah. So I have several questions here. You have three main characters throughout. So how did each one form for you? So it looks like you've got Dr. Jake Steed, you have
Mhm.
Harper, and then you have a Mountbatten, which is like a royalty name that we know.
Yeah, it's a noble name, yeah,
Yeah.
in England.
Yeah. So where did they kind
So
of come from, and did you have any real inspirations you pulled from to create those characters?
yeah, so there's really four main characters
Okay.
in this because it's a friend group, right? So you've got Jake, you've got Harper, you've got Abby Mountbatten, and you've got Mike Diaz, who is one of Jake's friends from the Marine Corps.
Okay.
And Mike is down in the Caribbean, out of the Marines, doing a little bit of side work for the CIA occasionally when he's not taking people fishing. He's got a CIA paid for boat, like that's never happened before in the world. But
I was like, I
yeah,
don't know if
so
this is something you're
it
saying
actually
you have
does happen.
experience with,
Yeah, no,
but
no.
I saw
Yeah,
on your
well,
thing about.
yeah, well. But so he's down there, and Jake and Harper are headed for the Caribbean. Abby is already in the Caribbean, and her mother considers it to be a boondoggle. They're all in their early 20s. Jake's a little early, kind of like late 20s. Um, and Harper is, or sorry, Abby is trying to find a blood diamond that her late brother, had been on the hunt for, and it was a diamond that was stolen from a conflict. It's a conflict diamond
Mhm.
that was stolen from the British government years and years ago, and then unfortunately her brother passes away, and Abby, who is just as enthralled with pirate history as Jake and Harper are, is down there looking for it. She has a chance encounter with a guy who happens to be Mike Diaz, who happens to be Jake's best friend from the Marine Corps, and they're like, Abby's like, man, I need some help with this, and Mike is like, I know a guy, my buddy Jake. He's a doctor, not the smart kind, but that helps people in hospitals, but the other kind of doctor. Um, because Mike's a very simple guy, and simple, but like really talented. Like he's the guy you want beside you in a bar fight.
Okay.
He's the guy that you call when your boat stops working and you need a lift. So yeah, so the story just goes on from there. And this friend group, they obviously there's a villain who probably wants the blood diamond. I don't want to give too much away,
Yeah.
but it's a fun story. I had a heck of a good time. It's one of the things that, like, when I'm writing, I'm enjoying telling the story
Hmm.
as I'm going through it. I know I get frustrated during the edit parts, like looking for those pesky filter verbs and all that.
Yeah.
But I love actually spinning the tale.
Yeah. And so did you have like for Jake or for any of them, did you have inspiration from real life people that you knew that you were like, I am like pulling this personality from this person and this person, or did they just kind of come to you fully form and you were able to explore that with them?
Yeah, Mike Diaz is an amalgamation of two names of guys that I served with in the army. One guy named Mike, the other whose last name is Diaz. He probably looks a lot like my friend Mike.
Hmm.
You know, not real tall, kind of reddish hair, real scrappy. Um, so that's where Mike Diaz came from. Um, Harper is blonde, not real tall. My girlfriend is blonde, not real tall.
Oh, so
Um,
you did have there was some
so
inspiration around
little
you.
little inspiration there. Abby was just kind of totally made up, but like she doesn't really fit with anybody that I'm friends with. But like the kind of person that I would want to hang out
Yeah.
with,
Yeah.
and so
That's
there you go.
amazing. So have you ever been treasure hunting?
Have I ever been treasure hunting? Not like treasure hunting per se.
Okay.
I've spent time in the Caribbean,
Yeah.
and certainly I've been on enough different missions around the world, doing different things, or supporting different missions. I was always a support guy. Um, so yeah, no, I've never really actually been a treasure hunter. But I love the concept, and I love piracy, and I love sailboats
Okay.
and airplanes, and both of those are in the book.
So what kind of research did you have to do for this book then? If you've not done treasure hunting, like where did you get the information?
Yeah, that's cool. A lot of the research for Charleston came from hanging out in Charleston.
Yeah.
Hanging out along King Street, going down to the marina. Look, we're probably going to move there in a few
Oh,
years,
nice.
um, hopefully. So looking at like different locations on Johns Island and driving around and going down to Folly Beach. I mean, we did a trip. I think, what were we down there for? I think we were down there for one of Brad Taylor's book launches.
Okay.
Well, there's a bar that's in the book called the Sand Dollar Social Club, and it's over in Folly Beach. So we went to the Sand Dollar Social Club, which is a biker bar.
Wow.
Um,
Nice.
it's fantastic. And I walked in, and it was empty except for like a couple of people day drinking and smoking Marlboros. And I was, they were like, "Hey, can we help you? It's a members only club." And I was like, "Oh, well, I'm Jack McTavish. I'm writing a book, and I kind of saw this on the internet as sort of a dive bar in Folly Beach that I thought would fit well within the book.
Yeah.
Wanted to take a look around. They're like, "Oh, that's so cool. Hey, come on in, have a beer." So I came in, had a beer. They're like, "Well, you got to be a member." I'm like, "Well, how much is membership?" They're like, "It's $1 for a lifetime. Here's your card." I gave them $1. They gave
Perfect.
me a card behind me up there. And next thing you know, I've got a place for a scene and a bunch of pictures and all that. And I mean, I've been in enough bars at night that
Kind of have an idea
understand
of how that goes.
what it feels like, southern dive bars. Um, and yeah, it's perfect for it. So, and then the Caribbean stuff. I've been down there, not to Tortola where the book takes place. Incidentally, like my aunt was there as I was writing about Tortola,
Oh,
so I was able
nice.
to go back and forth and talk to her a little bit about it. But I've been to the American Virgin Islands like multiple times and deployed to Haiti back in the early '90s for a mission. Uh, Puerto Rico, all those other places. My next book is also about the Caribbean, and the book after that is about the Caribbean, specifically Cuba. So
Yeah.
I love the place.
So
I
there's
can't
a
wait to
lot
get
of
down.
stuff that's going on. I mean, when's the last time you got to
And
go down to the Caribbean?
Key West is in there as
US?
well,
Mhm.
and it's probably been about 10 years since I've been down there last.
Well, it
Um,
sounds like you're going to need
I
to do a
can't wait
revisit.
to go. Yeah, no, I need to do a revisit. Since about 2020, 2019 on was a little busy.
Yeah, yeah, a little bit busy. So you were talking about you had a lot of fun writing this book, which I can imagine that being the case. What was the most fun part to write, but what was the most challenging and how did you work through it?
Yeah, it's good, man. You ask great questions. Um, the the fun parts were because I'm a guy and I like gear and stuff like that. So like writing some of the airplane scenes.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I was a flight surgeon in the military, and I've flown on a bunch of helicopters, but not a lot of fixed wing time,
Hmm.
like from a pilot's perspective. So fortunately, I have friends that are pilots, so I was able to kind of lean on that a little bit and kind of looking up what the start process for a de Havilland Beaver was kind of fun for me to
Hmm.
like go through like, okay, well, first you flip the switch and you do this and you check that and you look out the window and like, because pilots are very checklist driven.
Yeah.
So I went through and kind of learned all that, and I bounced it off a couple of pilot buddies. One scene was really fun to write because you probably know who Jack Stewart is,
Yeah, of
right?
course. Hmm.
Yeah, Jack Stewart. So I put Jack Stewart as a cameo in this
Oh,
book
that's
as a
fun.
private pilot, and that chapter was really fun to write.
Yeah.
So, and I texted him. I was like, "Hey, man, do you mind if I like throw you in this book as a cameo?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure, whatever, bro, go ahead." So I did that. That was kind of fun. But like writing some of the action
Yeah.
scenes and like especially as the book, climaxes. We're doing X and Y happens, and
And those scenes are really interesting to write too, because it's like you're focusing on the action, right? Like boom, 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 boom,
yeah,
these things are happening. But like at the same time, how is your character going through that? How are they, experiencing it? And
yeah,
there's always the kind of the question too. And I think many authors do it differently where in an action scene they can do really quick and it's not
hmm
focused on it, or they'll slow it down based upon
yeah.
like whichever kind of whatever they're trying to convey. So what did you find that it was for you when you were going through those scenes?
Mine go fairly quickly.
Yeah.
I tend to write in shorter chapters, usually 1,500 to 2,000
Yeah.
words, maybe even sometimes a little shorter. Um, and the um, the one of the biggest things with each action sequence is, how does this drive the plot forward?
Hmm.
It's not just gratuitous action.
Yeah.
And what does this do for like, what question does this answer, or what question does this ask for the rest of the book? So doing that was kind of hard.
Yeah. So when you did that, was that after you drafted, or did you do those questions? Did you ask those questions before you drafted?
No, I do it as I'm going along.
Right. Okay.
I'm kind of a, when I start writing, I kind of have a general idea of where I want things to go. I definitely have an idea of how I want to start the story, and I usually usually write a prologue, and then I write most of an epilogue. Like, okay, I want this to look like
Yeah.
this at the
Well,
end,
yeah. How
and
has
that
that
comes from,
changed? What's the
yeah.
change?
So that comes from my military training. So in the mission paragraph of mission planning, you answer the question, task and purpose, and for the next paragraph, execution, the most important part is what's called the commander's intent, like what I want this to look like at the end of the mission. So answering those three questions helps me a lot as a writer. And then as I kind of go through, sometimes I'll trace out like different arcs. Like I've got Jake's arc and Mike's arc and Abby's arc,
Mhm.
and the other arcs within the story and the stories within the story. And that's always fun putting them in there. But I usually will go through and I'll say, okay, let's start off with 60 or 70 chapters. That's about how long, this is about how long I want the book to be, about, 100,000 words, and, 1,500 words per chapter at an average. I need X number of chapters. And, act one, act two, act three. And then I answer who, what, where, when, and why for every single chapter.
Okay.
And I start off at, this is maybe Jake's viewpoint. This one is Harper's viewpoint. I want to introduce Harper in this chapter. And then this next chapter, I want to introduce this bad guy. And the next chapter, I want to introduce this person. And that gets you through most of Act One
Yeah.
pretty well. And then, what's the question? What's going to happen in this book, and where does it go? So I kind of weave all that through. But once I do that, then I tend to, I tend to not to be an outliner, I'm more of a pantser at that point,
Yeah.
and kind of banging through it and
Yeah.
making stuff up as I go along. The cool thing about writing, fun fact, the cool thing about writing action adventure as opposed to writing like straight military espionage is you can suspend disbelief and just make it fun,
Yeah.
which is great.
Yes.
Because when I've written like military and espionage stuff, like making sure I've got the details right of how a firefight kicks off, and what your support by fire element does, and what your assault element does, and because you don't want to get called out in the comment section,
Mm-mm.
for crappy research.
Especially
So,
like what I've heard is that the readers of military fiction in particular are pretty
detail.
rabid about
Oh yeah.
being correct with the guns, with procedure, with all of that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and you don't have to, I mean, I still pay a lot of attention to that nowadays. But, and even with like the plane crash sequences, because fortunately the guy who narrated my audiobook is also a pilot, because he'd send me text messages and he's like, hey, he's like, you might want to go back and take a look at this.
Well, that was helpful
So
then.
I did. So it was great.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's a lot of fun, but it's, I don't know if you've ever read any Ted Bell or anything like that, but it's just over the top fun and,
Okay.
and adventure, and that's kind of what I don't want to write a serious story. I've done a lot of serious stuff,
Yeah.
in my lifetime.
Just want fun, like popcorn
Like
adventure.
fun,
Is
yeah,
that, because
yeah,
that actually kind of answers the question. My next question was going to be, what do you hope readers walk away from this book feeling?
fun,
Yeah.
absolutely, that'll be fun. Maybe a little drunk. Like if you're sitting this on a beat, if you're sitting, my ideal reader for this, one of the people I was working with last night bought a copy of it from me, and I signed for him, and he was like, "Man, this looks like the best beach read ever."
That sounds
And
fun.
then another nurse I was working with was like, "I'm going on a cruise next week, and this is going to be my cruise book."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh man, this is awesome!" So a margarita deep, enjoying the book, just relaxed, waves going up and down.
That sounds
That
incredible.
perfect afternoon for me, and it's the perfect. And I hope my readers are doing the same thing.
That's amazing. I may have to stay. I'm going to Hawaii next month for like 2 weeks. So hopefully I can get a little bit of beach time. This sounds like such a good
Oh,
book
I
for
hope you
that.
do. That's great. Good for you.
So okay, going into kind of the craft a little bit, why did you choose to write in this genre, in the action adventure genre, versus like anything else? Or even
Yeah.
thriller in general? Like we could even just say like in the thriller genre in general.
Well, I mean, I certainly wasn't going to do nonfiction. That's too much work, you know. um, I've just been a consumer of it forever. I grew up. My mom was a teacher. A lot of times in the summer, we would find ourselves dropped off in the library while she was out working. It
Mhm.
was air conditioned. We didn't have air conditioning in our house. I
Same.
mean, it
Same.
was hot
Yep.
growing up. So,
No
you know,
AC and was in the library.
yeah, you go to the library and you just sit and you read, and found that I was drawn to history because I loved that, and I was drawn to good stories.
Mhm.
So, action adventure, I think, has a lot of overlay between the two. And like the first thriller I ever read was "Raise the Titanic" by Clive Cussler.
Okay.
I still have like an early edition copy back there. I fell in love with Tom Clancy. Probably, I guess I was probably maybe in high school, maybe right after high school. I've got a first edition The Hunt for Red
Oh,
October behind
wow.
me that I found for $5 at a
What?
used bookstore. Yeah,
Wow.
from the Naval Institute Press. Um, so I love those kind of books and those kind of stories. Um, and again, I tried military and espionage, but when my editor was like, "Hey, can you write action adventure?" It fits more with my lifestyle and kind of where I want to operate at this point in the world. I mean, I love a good adventure. I love a trip. I mean, if you want to go get on a plane this afternoon, like my passport is literally already down in my truck in my bag that has pretty much what I need in it to go somewhere for a couple of days. I mean, I would go,
Yeah.
um, because I love a good adventure. I love traveling, and so it's just a good fit for me.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So, what is it? So, what's the difference between an action adventure thriller versus, let's say, a psychological thriller or other kind of thrillers? Like, what? Because there's always this conversation around like what is mystery, what is suspense, what is thriller, what have you. When you get into the subgenres of it, adventure thriller, it's thrilling, but it's in a different kind of way. So can you talk about like what that experience is and like what makes it different?
Yeah, so I don't have an MFA,
Okay, that's
so
totally okay. We're
great.
all just normal people here with
Yeah,
everyone's opinions.
I think it's probably the stakes. I mean, the stakes are high. I mean, people could potentially die in my book, and they do some dangerous things. But I think the action adventure stuff is probably a little more fun
Mhm.
than the dark psychological thrillers. I recently watched, and this is interesting. Fun fact: well, I've never really watched a lot of TV before. I always liked movies, but never really watched a lot of TV. But since I started writing, I look at TV shows and movies now with a completely different
Mhm.
eye. So I watched The Housemaid recently with Sydney Sweeney and some other
Yeah.
person in that group that was on one of the Yellowstone spinoffs. Man, that's dark.
Yeah.
Like that's crazy.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, I can't write that. I've got no interest in that. I think action adventures is a little more fun, a little more over the top, a little more. I like retro or vintagey stuff. That's a little more Indiana Jones than
Yeah.
um,
Which is its
you
own
know.
kind of thrill, right? Like,
It
that's what
is.
I think is great about it, is that it is a thrill. It's still the feeling that a person is gonna have in when they're reading these kinds of books are gonna be similar in the sense of, like,
Yeah.
heart racing and blood pressure raising and, like, adrenaline pumping, and that happens. It's just this is, like, more of a it's the adventure. It's so like, when
Yeah.
you're describing this, I was totally seeing, like, Indiana Jones or there's a Matthew McConaughey movie, it's a rom-com, Fools Rush In, I think is what it's called, or
Yeah.
Fool's Gold,
Yeah.
maybe, I think it is, but,
Yeah.
like, yeah, so those are kind of what I picture in my mind,
That,
but, like and that's fun, that's, like, such a great fun departure, and it's still a safe way to be able to have all of the adrenaline feels.
yeah. I think if you really, I think my writing, certainly with the next book that's going to come out, is more escapist,
Yeah,
fun, fun adventure fiction.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I think it's more. If you look at listen to like the soundtrack of my life, it's Jimmy Buffett. It's heavily laden with Jimmy Buffett and Kenny Chesney, and it's summertime. It's flip flops. It's you know beaches, bars.
yeah.
ballads, stuff like that. I'm definitely an empath. There's definitely a bunch of romance in there as it kind of weaves throughout every book. Um, those kind of things. That's where I want to write.
That's amazing.
I'm sorry, it's probably the MFA. All the MFA people are probably cringing right now, but
You know
it
what?
is what it
That's
is.
everyone has a different thing. Like I'm the first person to admit I can't read classics. I feel like I
Yeah,
should. It feels like it's a crazy thing for me to say it, but I just like it just doesn't work for me. And there's nothing wrong with that. I know this genre well. I don't
yeah,
know classics.
sure do.
It's okay to like what you like.
Yeah,
So,
I'm reading A Farewell to Arms right now by Hemingway.
uh-huh.
Love it.
Yeah.
And it is a little escapist to me, and I like that a lot. And then also, one of my Instagram followers just pointed out, he's he's, he's like, "Is Jack McTavish the next John D. McDonald?" And I was like, "Who the hell's John D. McDonald?" No idea. Travis McGee. And then like he put in his little post he put up, he put the song "Incommunicado" by Jimmy Buffett
Uh-huh.
that is about a John D. McDonald novel and Travis McGee in Cedar Key, Florida. So I looked it up and I was like, so now I'm reading John D. McDonald as I go,
You're like,
learning,
"This
and
is great."
I love it, man. It's great.
That's awesome. I have not heard of that, but I am gonna check it out because I love
Oh
to
yeah,
just see more. I love the exposure to different kinds of books within this genre.
yeah, it's fun.
Okay, so we're gonna move to the next section, which is the 10 questions I ask all of our guests. And so first, what is on your desk while you're writing?
Oh, okay. Usually, in adventure writer, military guy.
Of
This is my
course.
my combat knife from this thing has been in South America, Central America, Haiti, Afghanistan, Iraq. It's been all over the place. I usually write, and I've kind of cleaned my desk off a little bit because I've been doing so many of these things. There's always a compass sitting nearby. That's always a big deal. I'm a huge watch
Yeah, I was gonna say,
fan.
like, seeing all those watches you've got
Yeah,
on the
so
back there.
like today I'm wearing a Tudor GMT, which is kind of a classic explorer's watch. There's a bunch of other ones. There's there's a bunch of different books, and there's just little knickknacks from like different things that I've gone on and done and been around. This is my very first pocket knife ever that my dad gave me.
Oh.
I got that when I was 8 years old, so it's almost 8 years old now. The flight helmet from Afghanistan's behind me. Those kind of things. So I keep a bunch of that kind of knick-knacky stuff around. Always a compass nearby. I always like, to me, a compass represents exploration and purpose, and so I always have a compass nearby, and there's several behind me of
That's amazing.
various ages.
I love that
And
too.
the compass is very central to the story.
Yeah. I was gonna say it feels like very like connected to what you're writing as
Mhm.
well, like having a compass and
Yeah.
everything. Um, okay, so what ritual, if any, do you have before or after you write?
Do the laundry.
Is that you do laundry before you write?
Yeah, yeah. I did it before this podcast. Make sure all the laundry is done. Clean that,
What is it about
clean,
doing laundry
clean
that helps
underwear.
you feel like you can write?
It doesn't focus me. It just the place is squared away and
Yeah.
ready to go, and then I can focus, and I'm not worried about, well, I got laundry I got to get done, or there's dishes in the sink that I didn't finish with, and I want to get those done. And
This feels very, like, deeply ingrained military cleanli like, getting your like, everything is put together before
yeah,
you do your work.
it helps.
I bet. Okay, so if you are writing multiple POV or multiple timeline, do you write straight through like the reader reads, or do you write each section and weave them together?
Oh no, straight through.
Okay, okay. Um, what is
Yeah,
the
I do not skip ahead,
No?
even if I want to. Like if I'm on chapter 21, I am not writing chapter 30 next. Even if I start to think about chapter 30, I may skip ahead like in my manuscript and like scribble some
Put some
notes,
notes, like, "This is gonna happen
but
here,"
I
yeah.
but I do not do it until I've done 22, 23, 24 on down
Yeah.
the road.
Okay, okay.
And that may be, again, it may be a cringe thing for the MFAs out there, but I don't know. Whatever.
No, actually, you'd be surprised. Majority of people answer that they write straight through, which I find fascinating because this, like, I asked this question because especially for our newer writers, it's always a question that they have. But also, it's switching points of view and switching timeline can be it. It just can be a challenge, right? So I'm always interested to see how people handle it. What is the most bullshit piece of advice you've heard?
Ooh, that's a darn good question. Don't publish indie. No, that's so I don't know. I mean, everybody's got opinions and
Yeah.
all that. I man, when I first started doing this, I mean, I was like, I didn't even really know what Big Five was,
Mhm.
really. But I was like, well, I want to write a book and it's going to get published and blah blah blah. Um, and I hired an editor and worked with them and did a good job and learned a lot. Again, I always consider it to be like another graduate degree.
Mhm.
Um, which incidentally, while I was writing, I got my doctorate
Wha
as I was writing like my second book. I think I was working through that.
Wait, your doctorate for
Um,
what?
it's in emergency management and global health.
Wow.
Doctor of medical science with a emergency management and global health perspective. Um, and which made me a better researcher as well as a writer. But it was always like big five. Got to get an agent. Blah blah blah. I was like, well, and then after getting kicked in the face, a bunch of times by I'd go to Thriller Fest and I love it. I love connecting
Amazing.
with people. It's fantastic. Um, and you meet other writers, but and I'd meet agents and they're like, oh man, they're like all enthused. And the next thing you know, I'm getting like a note back from a assistant that, and don't get me wrong, these people are wonderful, but there's so many of them that are 22 years old and they've never done anything other than bachelor's degree in writing and fine arts. They've never traveled. They've never done anything
Mhm.
other than that, which is, it's kind of cool, but still it's not very, it's not a very wide worldview.
Yeah.
Um, and so finally, when I was like, you know what, I want to get this book out. And I was building a social media presence kind of along the way, and it was getting bigger and bigger. And
Mhm.
people were like, hey, when's your book out? When's your book going to come out? Um, so I was like, I need to just go ahead and do this. My brother's a businessman. He gets on a plane every Monday morning and flies off somewhere around the country and flies back on Friday. Very successful. He's done really well. He understands the business world. He's like, Dave, just, get your, change that to Jack, please. Goodbye.
Yeah. Jack
Yeah.
did.
He's like, Jack, go, he's like, just self-publish it, man. He goes, I don't care if you sell it out of like the trunk of your, or the back of your truck, just self-publish it. You can do it. So I was like, okay, well, so started thinking about it. I was like, you know what, I want to do it. And I already had the corporate structure with like an LLC.
Mhm.
I already hired an artist. I was like, you know what, I want to hire a good artist. Sorry, I already had a good editor. I want to hire a good artist.
Yeah.
So I hired a good artist. I hired Corey Clubb. Corey's amazing. The same week that he delivered my cover, do you know him?
I don't know him. No, I haven't heard
Yeah.
that name yet.
So the same week he delivered my cover to me, he had a cover up and down New York or up and down Times Square on all those big
Yeah.
billboards.
That's
I was
amazing.
like, well, I guess I hired the right guy,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, it's a fantastic cover, and I will say, like,
I couldn't do it.
self-publishing can go and indie publishing can go either way when it comes to a cover, right?
Yeah,
But, like, I was looking
absolutely.
at this and it looks like a Big Five cover.
Yeah, yeah, and so I was like, if this is the standard, if Brad Taylor does it like this, then I want to do it like
Yeah.
this. If my social media stuff doesn't look, if my social media stuff looks amateurish, well, then that's not what I'm looking for. I
Mhm.
want to do this as professionally and as best as I can. I have no training in how to do this, so it's all been learning how to do that as I go along.
Yeah.
So yeah, to answer your question, you need a Big Five contract and an agent to be successful. I don't know. Pub Day is next week.
We'll
We'll see what
see.
happens.
We'll see.
But
But we know that there's
yeah,
a history of it that not being the case. I know plenty of indie authors that are doing very well, that they are
yeah,
able to publish what they want. They're telling the stories that they want when they want, and
yeah.
they're in control, and that's pretty amazing.
I hope I can. be blessed with that and have it. And if not, I've still had a heck of a good time
Yeah.
writing this book. And I've, people that have read it like it. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But it's fun. Plus, I've gotten a chance to learn how to run a business, man. I mean, setting up Square, using Linktree,
All
to
the things.
making my links look good. All those sort of things. Setting up a website. I mean, setting up an email list. I did that last week. I had no clue how to do this. So just the education, the journey has been worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. What is the best piece of advice you've heard?
Write the story. Well, let me think. Oh, hang on. No. At Thriller Fest last year, I saw Dr. David Morrell, the author of First Blood, amazing gentleman, and he was wearing a Rolex Submariner. So we started talking about watches, and this watch he's been wearing since like 1978, and he cuts wood with it and mows the grass with it. It's like the definition of a tool watch, right? It's a tool, not like a piece of jewelry. And he started talking about setting the scene in writing. And if Ryan Pote you wrote his debut novel came out last year. He and I were like standing there talking to him, and the next thing you knew, there was 10 other people that had just kind of gathered around as Dr. Morrell was doing basically a spontaneous
talk.
It was a master class.
Yeah.
So that probably helped me more than anything else with like setting the scene and things like that.
Yeah. So what was his advice for setting the scene?
Senses.
Using your senses, yeah.
What you see, what you smell, what you taste, those sort of things.
Yeah.
And you don't have to hit all of them every single time.
Yeah.
Because it gets boring, but one or two.
Yeah.
And vary them, and that I think that was really kind of helpful to me.
Wonderful.
So, and it's funny. It's because I was talking to a couple of people that were reading it last night, and they said that they felt like as they were reading the book that they felt like they were sitting down having a conversation with me.
Oh, that's a great sign.
So I don't know if that's good or not.
I mean, I feel like that's a great sign, right? But I guess we'll see.
I guess we'll see next week.
But you know what? If people are having good feedback, that's all that really matters. And if you love the book, like ultimately, that's what I tell all of my clients as well. Is always you own it is your story. You have to be the one that's happy with it because you're the one whose name's on it. And as long as you love it, that's all that matters.
Yep.
Yeah. What is the darkest idea you've had that has scared you about yourself?
I talked about this when I was talking to another podcaster recently, and it was some of the things that the bad guys do in the books. Mm-hmm. Like I'm kind of like, ooh, where did that come
like,
from?
Wow. I mean, I can't imagine that you don't have a ton of things to pull from with 36 years of military experience. Yeah. You've got to have a lot to pull from.
Yeah.
So how many drafts do you write and before you share with anyone?
I probably share it too early, honestly, or at least I have. So I've kind of held back on a couple of other things. I usually, the first time I write the end, I look at that and then I kind of set it aside for a week or two. Then I kind of go back through it and just kind of see how it goes. And then I'll ship it off to an editor to take a look at, because I mean, having that pro level help is helpful.
Yeah.
I kind of go through that. So it's probably goes through multiple iterations.
Yeah.
Probably it's usually pretty raw when I send it off.
Yeah. That makes sense.
But I also feel like it's pretty good when I send it off too.
Yeah.
Because the more you write, the better you get at self-editing.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, and that's the thing. I think when you're getting, more and more books in, you'll end up with cleaner and cleaner first drafts often because of you've learned how to do it. Like,
yeah. No, it's funny. I pulled one of my the first espionage book that I wrote. It's called Letter of Marque. And I looked at it the other day and I was like, oh man, there's this thing. Even after going through a developmental editor, thinking that it was at the point where it could go out to an agent, there's still a lot of things that I could clean up and make better.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the other thing that I learned that, again, didn't know. But I thought when you went to a developmental editor that you were good. Like I thought there was going to be no, it's not really
No,
the
the
case.
developmental editor is specifically to look at your big picture and to help you like, oh, where does the story go? And does this make sense? And all of
Yeah.
this. Usually it's there to poke the holes.
Yeah. Well, what's crazy though is that I haven't. There's not been a lot of changes in the development of my story
Mhm.
from time to time. So and I was kind of thinking, well, this could be a little further along than what it is. But then you have to go back through and do copy edits and line
Line
edits, and
edits. Yep.
learn how to do all that. And
Yep.
then it's funny. I was talking to Mark Graney. It was at one of his book launches recently, and he was talking about going through copy edits, just looking for certain phrasing of phrases that are acceptable today or phrases that aren't acceptable today, and all that. And it's like, wow, there certainly is a lot to it.
Yeah, there definitely is. Well, speaking of, there's a lot to it. What's your favorite part of the process, and what's your least favorite part of the process?
That's like asking somebody like what their favorite book is. I've got lots of favorite books. It just kind of depends on what I'm doing. I mean, I get excited when I'm starting a new process,
Mhm.
or a new book. I'm working on a next book that I've written is called Tales from the Caribbean. It's probably going to come out in November, and then it's going to be followed by a book called Hotel de Cuba. That just so I think probably format or getting the idea together is to get ready to launch it.
Yeah.
Is a lot of fun. Yeah, I think it's probably forming the idea and forming the story.
Yeah.
And kind of getting it all kind of arced out and like to where I want it to be, and that I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. That is definitely a lot of fun. For me, it's the I like getting lost in the creation of the story, whether that's in a
Mm.
draft or when it's doing the outlining. But then like going back and trying to make everything make sense. That's the that's the part that I'm just like, oh,
Yeah,
people,
that
characters.
can be hard sometimes. Yeah, especially like when you're like, I mean, there's the detaily things like what watch is this guy wearing?
Yeah.
What color eyes did they have? If it's not a character that I know really well,
Yeah.
and then there's well, he said this back in chapter 18, but now I'm thinking that it really needs to be this in chapter 40.
Mm-hmm.
What do I do
Yeah.
to making sure that there's consistency? Like I mean, it's just part of the process, but man, I don't like doing that.
Yeah. It is definitely. It's a lot of work. And what is your old school favorite mystery or thriller?
Oh, my favorite writer is probably Webb Griffin, but they aren't as much thrillers as they are more historical fiction. I would probably say Clear and Present Danger
Mm,
by Tom Clancy. Well, yeah, there's that, but also Red Storm Rising, which is one of Clancy's standalones.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, Clear and Present Danger, Drug Wars, Caribbean, South America, definitely identify with that.
Yeah.
Um, don't speak Spanish very well, but I understand a lot of it.
Yeah.
Um, I kind of speak Spanish like a toddler. But yeah, that's probably one of my long term favorites. I've read it a bunch of times.
Yeah. That's a great one. There's a reason why it's a classic for sure. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Jack. Where can people find you?
Best place is on Instagram, Jack McTavish Adventures. My website is www.jackmctavish.com. Yeah, and the book is going to be available on Kindle, Audible, Amazon for print version, and also Barnes and Nobles, and for distribution through Ingram Spark.
Nice.
So thanks a lot.
There's lots of places you can go and you can pick up Royal Diamonds. There it is. Love it.
Thank you.
If you would like to find me, you can reach me on Instagram at Sabrina Thatcher Author. And if you would like any information about my book coaching services, you can find that at crimeandquill.com. Until next time, friends, stay sharp and write twisted. Bye.